Hi, thanks for using my court coach. I'm Sarah, and I will be your instructor today as we talk about the Supervised Visitation Order Form FL-341A. This is usually used as an attachment to the Child Custody and Visitation Order Attachment, which is Form FL-341. You would use this form if the court made orders regarding supervised visitation. Whenever the court makes an order, you do have the option of writing out what those orders are. However, if you would like to streamline the process and just mark some boxes, this is the easier way to do it rather than write out all the orders the court made. As with all our court forms, you want to fill in your identifying case caption information at the top. Most likely, if a court's ordering supervised visitation, the court has some sort of explanation as to why they're requesting that the contact of a party be supervised. And so in field 1, you would mark the identifying box of the contact or the conduct of the party that gave rise to the concern of the court. So the couple of the options listed are abduction of children, sexual abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, neglect, or other. If there's another type of conduct that the court has identified that is not listed here, you would mark that box and explain what that is right to the right of that. If the court makes this as a final order, in other words, you've had a full hearing on the issues, each party has had an opportunity to present their case, you don't need to worry about filling out this sentence below. On the other hand, if the court is making this as some sort of emergency order and is reserving the ability to make a final determination after a full hearing on the case, then that means they are reserving on the findings, and you can mark the box of the party that is contesting the allegations here. If the court determines that supervised visitation is appropriate, then in field 2, you would mark the box of the party whose visitation is being supervised. In field 3, you would list the name, birth date, age, and sex of each child whose contact is being supervised with that party. Field 4, if the court makes an order that visitation is to be supervised, you would mark 4A. If it's just the exchanges, and sometimes they do that in high conflict cases where the parents clearly cannot get along, then you would mark 4B. If the court makes an order on who is to supervise the visits, then you would identify that in field 5. If it's a professional supervisor, someone that's getting paid to provide these services, then you would mark 5A. If it's non-professional, that's usually a third party that the parties can mutually agree upon, you would mark 4B. Whoever is supervising the visitation, if that person is known at the time of the hearing, you would list their name, address, and telephone number in field 6. Sometimes the court will say parties are to mutually agree upon someone and make that decision within such and such number of days, in which case you would not be able to fill in field 6 at the time of preparation of this order, but you could put to be determined, or you could mark up a box that says any other mutually agreed upon third party as arranged. If the court makes an order as to how often and how frequently the visits are to take place, you would either fill in that information in line 7, or you could just say see Form FL-341 for the specific schedule. Sometimes the court will order that the visitation should be subject to the supervisor's availability. Sometimes when you use a supervised visitation monitor, you kind of have to work with their schedule. So that may be the case. Finally, field 8 has you identify which party is responsible for payment of the professional supervisor. Again, that's only if the court makes that order. Sometimes they will order a party to advance it subject to reallocation, meaning that maybe petitioner has to pay the cost up front, but the court will hear a request later to reallocate that amount paid between the parties. So if the court makes specific orders on how the payment is to be made, you would write that into field 8. And again, if it is subject to reallocation, you could always add that language into field 10, which is kind of our catch-all other orders section. Field 9, if the court makes orders on who is to contact the professional provider, then you would identify that person and mark the correct box in field 9. And if there's a date given by which they have to make that contact, listed to the very far right. Sometimes they don't make that order, and it's just presumed that if a parent is ordered to have supervised visitation, we hope, we pray that that parent is motivated to do it as soon as possible. And then finally, leave the line for the judicial officer blank and the date. This is going to be eventually submitted to the court as part of an order, and the judge will stamp it, which will formalize the order. I hope that you found this helpful. Good luck.